What's happening, Confess TV family? Today's story is going to blow your mind, and honestly, it made me question everything I thought I knew about relationships. Picture this. You've been dating someone for 2 full years. You love them, you trust them, you're planning a future together. But then you discover something that shatters your entire reality. You weren't the girlfriend, you were the other woman. And the ex he claimed to have broken up with? They never actually broke up. This is the story of Sarah, who lived through exactly this nightmare. And trust me, the way she uncovered the truth is absolutely wild. But before we dive into this chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Stories like this don't come around often, and you won't want to miss what happens next. So let's paint the picture. Sarah is 21, living abroad in Europe as a foreign student. She meets Tim, who's 29, also a foreigner, at an English speakers event. Classic meet-cute situation, right? They hit it off immediately, go to a pub crawl together, and sparks fly. Now here's where things get interesting. And by interesting, I mean the first massive red flag that Sarah somehow missed. When they decide to meet up again, Tim insists it has to be at her place, not his. Always hers. And remember, Sarah specifically mentions her living situation isn't ideal for having guys over, especially overnight. But Tim knows this and still insists. Why? Well, Tim drops this bombshell. He's still living with his ex-girlfriend. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you should be thinking it. Because this is red flag number 1, 2, and 3 all rolled into one. But Tim has an explanation, of course. He says they broke up 3 months ago, but he prepaid 6 months of rent, so he's stuck there. He has his own room, they're definitely broken up, and he just needs to write out the lease. Sarah thinks, okay, weird situation, but I'm just hooking up with this guy, so whatever. Famous last words, right? A few weeks later, they decide to make it official and exclusive. Tim says he just needs 3 more months, then he'll move out and find his own place. He even complains about how uncomfortable it is living with his ex. Let's call her Stephanie, and explains why they broke up. Get this, he tells Sarah that he caught Stephanie cheating on him with her ex at a party. So Sarah thinks, well, if she cheated on him, obviously they're not getting back together. Oh, sweet summer child. Months pass. 3 months turn into more months. Tim doesn't move out. Now his story changes. He says he's got his own little apartment in the same house, separate from Stephanie. The rent is cheap, he doesn't need to buy furniture, and as foreigners, buying furniture you'll eventually have to sell is annoying. Makes sense financially, right? Wrong. Here's where it gets really sketchy. Tim keeps promising to bring Sarah over to show her they're living separately. But every single time Sarah brings it up, Tim has an excuse. Stephanie would get upset. Stephanie knows he has a girlfriend but doesn't like it and wants to get back together. Folks, if your partner is still living with an ex who wants them back, and you've never seen where they live after a year of dating, that's not a red flag. That's a red parade with fireworks. After an entire year of this madness, Tim finally moves out, but not into his own place, into his buddy's spare room. Sarah has been to this friend's place exactly once, and this friend is literally the only non-mutual friend of Tim's that she's ever met. Think about that for a second. After a year of dating, she's met one of his friends. 1. The temporary arrangement at his buddy's place stretches on for another 10 months. Sarah asks multiple times to visit, and Tim always says yes, but then later makes excuses. He doesn't want to intrude, doesn't want to be a nuisance. You know, the usual manipulation tactics. So let's do the math here. 2 years of dating, and Sarah has never seen where her boyfriend actually lives. She's never met his friends, except that one guy, one time. She's never video called with his family. But wait, it gets worse. Sarah mentions that Tim cancels plans frequently or shows up late. He travels for work sometimes, but usually just for a night or 2. They always hang out in Sarah's area because she lives closer to the city where there's actually stuff to do. Now, I want you to imagine being in Sarah's shoes for a moment. You love this person. You're planning a future together, but deep down, something feels off. You can't quite put your finger on it, but the pieces don't fit together perfectly. That's exactly where Sarah was when she decided to do a little investigating. One sleepless night, Sarah goes down a Facebook rabbit hole. She starts looking through tagged photos of Tim, photos that don't show up on his wall because apparently he's weird about his Facebook privacy. She finds 3 photos from when Tim visited home over the summer. In each photo, there's an untagged girl sitting next to him. In 2 photos, his arm is around her, but it's group shots with friends, so Sarah thinks maybe she's just a friend from home. But the 3rd photo, that's the one that made Sarah's blood run cold. It's Tim with this mystery girl, his sister, his brother-in-law, and his niece. This isn't a friend's photo, this is a family photo. And this untagged girl is right there, part of the family unit. Sarah doesn't know what Stephanie looks like because Stephanie doesn't have Facebook. But something in her gut tells her this mystery girl is Stephanie. So Sarah does what any of us would do. She goes full detective mode. She Googles everything she can about Stephanie and finds something that makes her stomach drop. Stephanie's grandmother's obituary from January. Remember, this is after Tim supposedly moved out, definitely after they should have been broken up. And right there in the obituary, listed as family members surviving the deceased, are Stephanie's name and Tim's name, right next to each other. Tim wasn't just close to the grandmother. According to this obituary, he was still considered family after they supposedly broke up. Now Sarah is spiraling, but she doesn't have concrete proof. So she decides to have a heart-to-heart with Tim. She explains how much the whole situation bothers her, how suspicious everything looks from her perspective. And Tim? Tim puts on the performance of a lifetime. He cries. She cries. He apologizes profusely, says he never meant to hurt her, that he didn't realize how much this was affecting her. He promises everything will change. She'll meet his friends, see where he lives, video call his family. He tells her she's the most important part of his life. Here, interesting word choice. And that he can't imagine life without her. He even says he wants to find an apartment for them to live together. And when she's done with school, they'll go back to his home country together. As for the girl in the photos, oh, that's just an old family friend. And the obituary? Well, the family still wishes he was part of the family. Right, of course. But here's where Sarah made a move that I honestly respect. During her detective phase, she had found the landline number for Stephanie's house and called asking for Tim. Stephanie's dad answered and just told her to call Tim's cell phone since it was the landline. Not super helpful, but a few days after Tim's big emotional speech, he texts Sarah asking if she called Stephanie's house. Sarah admits it. Tim loses his mind, says she betrayed his trust and is acting like an insane person. And here's the kicker. He says this might push back her meeting his friends because he told them what happened and they're annoyed at how she treated him. How convenient that every time Sarah gets close to the truth, Tim has a reason to pull back even further. Weeks go by. Nothing changes, obviously. But then Sarah gets her lucky break. Tim gets very drunk one night, and while he's passed out, Sarah uses his fingerprint to unlock his phone. And what she finds absolutely destroys her. Text messages from Stephanie from the day before, talking about what they should make for dinner that night. The same night Tim told Sarah he was out of town for work. Hearts and I love you messages back and forth. Tim using the same pet names for Stephanie that he uses for Sarah. Imagine how that felt. Messages where Tim tells Stephanie he's going out of town this weekend for work and how much he'll miss her, while he's actually planning to spend the weekend with Sarah. Sarah scrolls through weeks of messages. Tim sending Stephanie the same photos he'd sent to Sarah. Tim inviting Stephanie to have wine with his buddy and girlfriend, the friend Sarah was never allowed to hang out with. Tim picking Stephanie up from work multiple times. And conversations. So many conversations about who's making dinner that night, what they should eat, domestic couple stuff. For every night Sarah knew Tim had slept over at her place, she found messages where Tim told Stephanie he was crashing at a friend's place or out of town for work. But here's the piece that probably hurt the most. Sarah found a group text titled Family that included Tim, his sister, his mom, and Stephanie. Stephanie wasn't just the ex-girlfriend. She was still part of his family. Sarah looked at photos Stephanie had sent Tim and confirmed it was definitely the same girl from the Facebook photos. The mystery girl in the family photos. The girl who was supposedly the ex he caught cheating. The truth hit Sarah like a freight train. For 2 entire years, Tim had been living with Stephanie as her boyfriend, while seeing Sarah on the side. He had been telling Sarah how much he loved her, how they were going to build a future together, all while maintaining his real relationship with someone else. Sarah wasn't the girlfriend who had to deal with an annoying living situation with an ex. Sarah was the side chick. She was the other woman. And she had no idea. Can you imagine? 2 years of your life. 2 years of believing you were building something real with someone. 2 years of accepting weird situations and making excuses for red flags because you trusted this person. And it was all a lie. Now, Sarah could have just broken up with Tim and walked away. But she realized something important. Stephanie was also a victim here. Stephanie deserved to know what kind of man she'd been with for 4 years total. So Sarah came up with a plan. She wrote Stephanie a 3-page letter detailing the entire relationship she'd had with Tim over the past 2 years. She made it clear this wasn't just a fling. It was a serious relationship. She included specific dates, events, the intricate lies and backstories Tim had told her. She made a list of dates from the past 2 months when Tim had spent the night with her and encouraged Stephanie to cross-check them with nights he wasn't home. Sarah printed photos of her and Tim together as visual proof and put even more photos on a USB drive. She included screenshots of their most incriminating conversations, scanned postcards Tim had sent her from vacations, and even included a digital copy of the letter in case the hard copy went missing. She gave Stephanie her email and phone number and asked her to make contact if she wanted to. The plan was to deliver this letter personally if possible. The final confrontation, Sarah had someone drive her the 45 kilometers to where Stephanie lived. If Tim was there, she'd have final confirmation that he actually lived there and they'd leave. If he wasn't there, she'd ring the doorbell and hand Stephanie the letter personally. They drove all that way, and there was Tim, sitting in the living room on his laptop, like he lived there because he did. Both his and Stephanie's names were on the mailbox. Sarah called Tim to see if he'd pick up, and he ignored the call. So, Sarah mailed the letter as registered post, meaning Stephanie would have to show ID and sign for it. The letter arrived on Friday. Stephanie wasn't home, so she got a notification to pick it up at the post office. Saturday morning, she picked it up, and Sarah got an email receipt with Stephanie's signature. Throughout all of this, Sarah kept talking to Tim normally, making excuses for why he couldn't come over during the week so he wouldn't suspect anything. 20 minutes after Stephanie picked up that letter, Tim stopped talking to Sarah completely. Radio silence. He unfriended Sarah and her family on Facebook. Sarah never heard from Stephanie either. Shakuar, the aftermath and lessons, and that's where the story ends. Tim disappeared from Sarah's life as quickly as he'd entered it, probably trying to do damage control with Stephanie. Sarah never found out if Stephanie believed the evidence or if Tim managed to manipulate his way out of it. Sarah was left feeling lonely, taken advantage of, and beaten down. She started therapy to avoid slipping into depression and to work through the trust issues this experience created. This story haunts me because it shows how sophisticated some people can be in their deception. Tim wasn't just a cheater. He was running a full double life for 2 years. The logistics alone are mind-boggling. Keeping track of what he'd told which person, sending the same photos to both women, remembering which lies he'd told to cover his tracks. The red flags were there from day one, but Tim was skilled at providing just enough explanation to make Sarah doubt her instincts. And that's the scariest part. When someone is this good at manipulation, even the smartest, most aware person can fall victim to it. So, Confess TV family, what do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where the red flags were obvious in hindsight, but seemed reasonable at the time? How would you have handled Sarah's situation? And most importantly, do you think she did the right thing by telling Stephanie? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like this video if it kept you on the edge of your seat, and subscribe for more unbelievable true stories. Until next time, stay aware, trust your instincts, and remember, if something feels off, it probably is.